The European Union has just published the Artificial Intelligence Act, which is a proposal for a new regulation on artificial intelligence. And this is very important because usually when the European Union pioneers some new tech regulation, then all the other countries kind of get inspired by that. This is what happened with the GDPR already, and this is probably going to happen as well with the AI Act. So let's dive into it. First of all, why do we need an AI Act? Why do we need to regulate artificial intelligence? Well, artificial intelligence is starting to be used in a lot of different industries, a lot of different applications, and in some cases, there have been some issues. An example is an application of AI in the healthcare industry. In the US, there's an algorithm that when a patient walks in a hospital, calculates the likelihood of this patient to need more tests. Well, this algorithm was biased, so it was discriminating against people of color. There are other cases like this. For instance, Amazon published an algorithm to evaluate resumes of their candidates, and this algorithm was sexist, so it was giving priority to men candidates to female candidates. So there's a lot of stuff that can potentially go wrong, and there's a lot of cases where things actually went wrong. These are real cases with real repercussions on real humans, so it's very important that we try to regulate these cases and try to fix these issues. So let's talk about how the AI Act tries to regulate AI. Well, first of all, it identifies 4 different kinds of AI applications, categorized based on risk. The first case is unacceptable risk applications. These are applications that just can't be sold in the European Union. The first kind of unacceptable risk applications is AI used to manipulate people. Then there's AI systems used to identify people in public spaces in real time. So basically face detection algorithms run on cameras that can identify if you're walking through the street or stuff like this. All these applications can't be sold. There are a little bit of exceptions though. For instance, you can still use face recognition in case you need to identify a missing child or in case there's a suspect of a terrorist being in a public square, for instance, and you want to be able to identify these people in real time. There's also a little issue that guess it's going to be fixed at some point. The regulation specifies real-time identification, which means that technically it is possible to record footage of a public square and then later on identify the people in the public square, which is kind of weird and I guess it's going to be fixed. The second kind of AI application is high-risk AI applications. Let's look at some cases. One is AI for hiring decisions or to promote people or fire people. Then there's AI for education, so algorithms to select candidates for universities or to score exams. Then there's AI for law enforcement, AI to guarantee people access to public services, AI for critical infrastructure like for road traffic and these kind of things. All these applications can be developed and sold, but AI providers need to have very specific governance around these systems. They need to test the system for bias, so they need to make sure that these systems are not discriminating against a specific kind of people. Also, they need to monitor the performance of these AI algorithms across the entire life cycle of the technology. AI algorithms learn from data, so it is possible they develop something that works today, but as new data comes in, the performance of the algorithm change and may not work as well in a year from now. So these companies need to make sure that their algorithms are always effective. They also need to have some human oversight in place, which means that there must be someone, a human, that can intervene in case there's some potential issue or in case somebody wants to actually understand why maybe a loan application, let's say, has been rejected. So all these guidelines are there in place to make sure that tech companies can do whatever they want, basically, and they have some framework within they must work. Then there's minimal and limited AI risk. These are applications like a spam filter or a chatbot, where it's really hard that the AI system can do harm to people. In these cases, AI providers need to make sure that people know that they're interacting with an AI and they just can't lie and say, hey, talk to a human, and it's actually an AI in the back. And they're just encouraged to write their own code of ethics. But there's no very pressing guideline that they need to attend to. So let's try to comment a little bit on these regulations. Let's try to understand what this means for the AI industry. First of all, this is just a proposal. It's likely gonna change, it's likely gonna be improved, because we saw that there are a little bit of things that probably need to be touched. Some people have said that this regulation is gonna slow down innovation, and I may say yes, probably, But that's good because, the usual approach of Silicon Valley, of tech companies is move fast and break things. This is what Mark Zuckerberg was used to say a few years ago. And this is a problem sometimes because you're selecting a trade-off between speed and safety. And the only people who have an advantage with this approach are tech people. Everyone else who uses this technology, they just get the problems around it. They just get these unsafe applications and maybe they are harmed by these non-effective AI systems. A case is in the US. Think about the healthcare algorithm that was biased towards black people. People actually died because of the problems of these AI algorithms. For what? So that tech companies can make the algorithms faster and make more money quicker? Well, probably we need to reevaluate this trade-off between speed and safety. And I'm glad that the European Union took a very bold and brave chance in trying to set up this framework within companies can work. So AI companies are going to have to be a little bit slower, but they're also going to have to invest in tooling. I've seen a lot of AI companies that don't have good tools to make sure that their algorithms are working in the correct way. So there's a lot of business opportunities, by the way, if you want to build a company that allows other companies to monitor their algorithms. I may actually think about starting something in that field. But if you're a tech company, do invest in this technology. It's going to be better for you because your algorithms are going to be better. You're not going to get fined, and the fines are pretty expensive for this regulation. And people are just going to be happier. It's time to put people back into the center of innovation. This is why we build stuff, not for innovation's sake. We do innovation because we want to help people.